very quickly, which is Arabian Nights Volume 1, The Restless One. There are three volumes of this coming out. This is Miguel Gomez's Arabian Nights, a Portuguese director who, at the very beginning of the film, it says this is not an adaptation of the book The Arabian Nights. It is, in fact, a collection of stories, characters, and places inspired by facts that occurred in Portugal between August 2013 and July 2014. It's a film which is basically about austerity and about the political fallout of austerity. It begins looking like a documentary about the closure of a shipyard, and it begins with a sequence in which the director, unable to reconcile his idea that he wants to make a magical film full of wonderful, seductive stories and the miserable state of his country, literally runs off the set of his movie. He is then pursued by his crew who catch him, and he's going to be sentenced. But he says, okay, how about if I tell you some fascinating stories? Well, that kind of gets you into the Arabian Nights thing. What we then have is a series of stories that take sort of structural links from, Scheherazade and the stories of the Arabian Nights, just in terms of the structure, but actually are all based upon research and interviews and things which had happened during that actual period. So it's a strange mixture of fact and fantasy, a kind of docu-fantasy. It is a wild and crazy ride. It is shambolic in structure. As I said, there are three different parts of it. Part 1 this week, Part 2 opens next week, Part 3 opens the week after that. It's a film which is by turns satirical and inventive and occasionally very, very angry. It manages to make strange connections work surprisingly well. You have to give yourself over to it. It is definitely a film which requires you to sort of succumb to its form. And ideally, I think the director said that what he ideally wanted was people to see the film one day after each other. In case of this, that's actually going to be 1 week after, and there is going to be a screening. I do know some people have seen all three parts in the same day. I'll review the part 2 next week, but I have to say, from the point of view of part 1, it's a very, very bold, very arresting start, which has a strange mixture of, as I said, docu-fantasy, a way of telling a story that has a sort of fabulous structure, but is also absolutely underpinned by a desire to talk about a country and its economic crisis in a way which is bawdy and to some extent vulgar and to some extent sort of anarchic, but also actually, by the end of part 1, you felt that it had more structure than you expected at the beginning. It's also very, very visually arresting.